Lucy had always prided herself on being in control. She had never for once faced difficulty, every decision made carefully, every risk calculated. As a successful businesswoman, she was used to things going her way. But today, everything was different. Her sleek car, her most prized possession, had suddenly stopped in the middle of the road. No warning.
No explanation.
Just a jolt, followed by silence. She sat there for a moment, stunned. The hum of the engine was gone. She tried turning the key again, but it was no use. Nothing. Her phone had no signal, and she was miles from the nearest town. Lucy was used to being in control. But this was a reminder that life had a way of knocking you off your high horse when you least expected it. Welcome to Stories with Mr. Gray. If you love uncovering the truth and standing up for justice, hit subscribe, like and drop the flag of your country in the comments below. For a few moments, Lucy considered just sitting there, waiting for someone to pass by. But the road was quiet, too quiet. A strange unease crept over her. As she sat there, she noticed a figure in the distance, slowly making his way toward her. At first, she thought it might be a passerby, someone out for a walk. But as he got closer, she saw him more clearly. The man was black, dressed in ragged clothes that were torn and faded from years of wear. His shoes were barely held together, and his face was weathered, marked by hardships she couldn't imagine. His hair was unkempt, and his hands looked rough from work, but there was something about him that caught Lucy off guard. He wasn't what she had expected. Her first instinct was to roll up the window and lock the doors. She had been taught to be cautious, to stay away from strangers, especially those who didn't look like they belonged. But something in his eyes stopped her. There was no malice in them, only a quiet curiosity. He didn't approach with any sense of urgency, but instead, he seemed to walk at a measured pace, as if he had all the time in the world. When he finally reached her car, he stopped a few feet away and looked at her. Lucy's heart raced. She wasn't sure if she should be afraid or simply confused. "Need some help?" the man asked, his voice calm but deep, carrying an unexpected warmth. His words weren't what Lucy expected, and for a moment, she didn't know how to respond. I think I'm fine," Lucy stammered, her instincts telling her to refuse his offer. She didn't need help from someone like him. But as the silence stretched on, she realized she had no other options. The car wasn't starting, and there was no one else in sight. "I can fix it," he said again, his eyes never leaving hers. There was no hesitation in his voice. It was almost as if he had done this 1,000 times before. Lucy hesitated. He didn't look like he could fix anything. In fact, he looked like he could use a hand himself. But what other choice did she have? "I don't know. I mean, are you sure you know how to fix cars?" she asked, trying to sound casual, but she could feel the tension building in her chest. The man gave a small smile, as if he had heard this question 100 times before. "You'd be surprised," he replied, walking over to the front of the car without waiting for her answer. Lucy watched, both skeptical and curious, as the man knelt down in front of her car. He opened the hood, peered inside, and then reached into his bag. He pulled out a few tools, a wrench, a screwdriver, and a small piece of wire. Lucy couldn't help but watch him closely. He moved with a calm precision that seemed out of place. "Name's Malik," he said, breaking the silence as he worked. "Used to be a mechanic before things changed." Lucy felt a flicker of guilt at the thought of assuming he didn't know anything. As Malik worked, she found herself watching him more closely, studying the way he handled the tools. There was something almost meditative about the way he moved, like he was performing a task he had mastered long ago. She cleared her throat. "How did you end up like this?" she asked before she could stop herself. The question hung in the air for a moment, but Malik didn't flinch. "Life," he said simply. "Sometimes things just don't go the way you think they will." Lucy didn't respond right away. She had expected some long, sad story, but his answer was so matter-of-fact that it caught her off guard. For a moment, She wondered if this man, Malik, had lived a life far more complicated than she could understand. As he worked, she found herself lost in thought. What was this man really like? How had he come to be here, fixing a car for a woman who had everything? She was intrigued, but also unsettled. "You really know what you're doing," Lucy said after a long silence. Malik gave a small chuckle.
Yeah, I guess he do.
Sometimes life takes you places you don't expect. But if you've got the skills, you make it work. Lucy found herself nodding slowly. She had always believed in the power of hard work, but something about this moment was shifting her perspective. The man continued to work in silence, and Lucy, caught up in her thoughts, started to ask herself questions she had never considered before. Was she really any different from him? She had the wealth, the status, but was her life any more secure than his? In that moment, she began to see beyond the surface. The tension between them began to shift. Lucy was no longer just the wealthy woman watching a homeless man fix her car. For the first time, she was starting to see him as a person. And that made her question everything she thought she knew about the world. Malik worked with focused precision, his hands moving over the car's engine with a calm that Lucy found almost hypnotic. The initial skepticism she felt towards him was starting to melt away, replaced by something unfamiliar: trust. She had spent her life in a world where control and certainty reigned, but as she watched him, she realized just how little control she had over the situation. And somehow that felt both terrifying and freeing. Lucy leaned back against her seat, arms crossed, observing him in silence. He didn't seem to notice her staring. He was lost in his work. Every so often, he would mutter something under his breath, an assessment of the engine's condition, a note to himself, but for the most part, he was calm, focused, and completely at ease. She couldn't help but wonder about his life. Malik seemed so different from anyone she'd ever met. His clothes were worn, his shoes barely holding together, and yet there was a quiet confidence in the way he worked. It was clear he knew what he was doing. "I didn't think people like you knew how to fix cars," Lucy finally said, breaking the silence. Malik paused for a moment, wiping his hands on a rag before he looked up at her. "What do you mean by people like me?" His voice was gentle, but there was an edge to it, a question that Lucy hadn't expected. Lucy faltered. I didn't mean anything by it," she stammered. You don't look like a mechanic. That's all." Malik didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned his attention back to the car, tightening a bolt with careful precision. "Most people think that," he said after a beat. "They see me on the street, and they think I'm just some guy down on his luck. But people like me, we don't just lose everything overnight. Sometimes it's a series of small things that lead to big changes. One bad decision, one unexpected event, and you're right back where you started. Or worse." Lucy felt a pang of guilt. She had always prided herself on being different from others, on rising above adversity, but now she wondered just how much she understood about true hardship. "You know," Malik continued, his voice calm and steady, "I used to run a shop. I was a mechanic, had my own business, worked on everything, cars, trucks, you name it. But when the economy tanked, things got tough. Customers stopped coming in. The bills piled up. And before I knew it, I was on the street. It didn't happen all at once, but it felt like it did." Lucy listened, captivated by his story. It wasn't what she had expected. She had assumed he was just another person down on their luck, someone who had given up. But hearing him talk about his past, she could see that wasn't the case. There was resilience in his voice, a quiet strength that Lucy hadn't noticed before. "So, what happened to your shop?" Lucy asked, genuinely curious. Malik sighed, standing up and wiping his hands on his pants. He looked at her, meeting her gaze for the first time without breaking eye contact. "I lost it. Not just the shop. Everything. My home, my car, my family. It all fell apart. And when you've lost everything, you start to see the world a little differently. You realize how much we take for granted. People with money, people with power, they don't always understand that. His words hit Lucy harder than she expected. She had always viewed the world through a lens of privilege, never truly understanding the depth of someone else's struggle. And here was Malik, a man who had experienced more loss than she could ever imagine, and yet he still offered to help her. It made her feel small, almost guilty for taking her life for granted. "I never really thought about it like that," Lucy admitted, her voice quieter now. "I've always had everything I needed." Malik nodded, returning his attention to the engine. "I figured. But that's the thing, no one expects to lose it all. It just happens. And when it does, you either adapt or you get left behind." Lucy was silent for a moment, digesting his words. She had been so wrapped up in her own life, in her own problems, that she had never truly considered the bigger picture. Malik was still working on the car, his hands moving effortlessly over the engine, but Lucy was no longer watching him just as a mechanic. She was watching him as a person, a man who had endured more than most people could imagine. And suddenly, the car didn't matter as much. What mattered was the connection they were starting to build. "You know," Lucy said after a long pause, "I never thought I'd be here, like this, sitting in a car with a stranger. But now, I'm starting to think that maybe I'm the one who needs help." Malik didn't look up, but she could see the faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "We all need help sometimes," he said softly. "Some of us just have to swallow our pride and ask for it." The words resonated deeply with Lucy. She had always prided herself on her independence, on the fact that she had never needed anyone. But here she was, stranded on the side of the road, relying on a man she had never met. And in that moment, she realized something she had never fully understood before. No one could do it alone. As Malik continued to work, Lucy found herself reflecting on her life. She had always seen herself as someone who had earned everything she had, someone who deserved her success. But Malik's words had shaken that belief. Maybe it wasn't just about what you could do on your own. Maybe it was about the connections you made, the people you helped, and the ones who helped you in return. "You're doing it," Lucy said, breaking the silence. "The car's starting to sound better. It might actually work." Malik's smile widened, though he didn't look up from his work. "I told you I knew what I was doing." Lucy let out a small laugh, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. The car wasn't the only thing that was about to be fixed. As Malik worked, Lucy couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude mixed with a strange, growing connection to the man who had come from nowhere to help her. The tension between them had slowly dissipated, replaced by something much more profound, a shared understanding, though unspoken. The sound of the engine came to life with a smooth hum, and Lucy felt a sense of relief wash over her. Malik had done it. He had actually fixed her car. Malik stood up, wiping his hands on his rag again, looking pleased with his work. He stepped back and gave a nod of approval. "There you go. Should be good as new," he said, giving her a small smile. Lucy couldn't hide her surprise. "I honestly didn't think it was possible. I didn't think it was going to start at all, to be honest." Malik shrugged, his smile still soft. "Sometimes things look worse than they really are. You just have to know where to look." She looked at him, her thoughts running wild. There was something about Malik that made her feel both humbled and inspired. He wasn't just a homeless man on the street. He was someone who had lived, someone who had learned how to survive, to adapt. And now, he was teaching her things about life she hadn't even considered. "I really don't know how to thank you," Lucy said, her voice softer now. You didn't have to do this." Malik turned and looked at her with a quiet smile. "I didn't do it for thanks. Sometimes, helping someone is just the right thing to do. That's all." Lucy nodded, her gaze lingering on him for a moment. She was beginning to feel like she was seeing a different side of the world, a side that had always been hidden from her, locked away behind the wealth and security she took for granted. "You've really changed my perspective," she admitted, not even realizing how honest she was being. "I don't think I've ever really understood what it means to struggle." to really, truly struggle. Malik didn't respond at first. He simply watched her, a quiet understanding in his eyes. It wasn't pity. It wasn't judgment. It was just knowing. Most people don't, he said finally. They don't realize how lucky they are. It's not their fault. But it's good to recognize it when you can. It's humbling. Lucy was silent for a long moment. She had always been proud of what she had achieved in her life. She had worked hard to build her career, to make her own way in the world. But now, as she looked at Malik, standing there with nothing but a few tools and the wisdom that came with surviving life's hardest blows, she felt a deep sense of humility. "You're right," she said quietly, the weight of her words sinking in. There was a long pause, and then Malik looked away from her, his expression hardening just slightly. Lucy noticed the shift, the subtle change in his demeanor. It was as if he had closed off a part of himself. "I have to go," Malik said, his voice distant. Lucy frowned. "What? Why? I mean, you don't have to leave right away. I can give you a ride somewhere, or—" He shook his head, cutting her off gently. "No, I appreciate the offer, but I've got my own way of getting by. I don't like to take charity, especially from people I don't know." Lucy was taken aback by the sudden coldness in his tone. "But I'm not asking for anything," Malik said, his eyes now focused on the ground. "I don't want your pity or your money. I'm just another guy trying to make it through each day. That's all." The tension between them thickened, and for the first time, Lucy could see the walls that Malik had built around himself. He wasn't just a man with a difficult past. He was someone who had been hurt by the world, someone who had learned to protect himself from those who tried to help. Lucy didn't know what to say. She had tried to offer him something, a simple gesture of kindness, but it had been rejected. It was a sharp reminder of the divide between their worlds. "I don't mean to offend you," Lucy said after a pause. "I just thought, well, I thought maybe you could use some help. I didn't want to make you feel like I was pitying you." Malik looked up at her then, his gaze softer, but there was still a guardedness to it. "It's not that. I don't need your pity. I don't need anyone's pity. I've learned to survive without it. It's just how it is." Lucy swallowed, unsure how to respond. She was still processing everything, the way he had fixed her car, the way his words had made her think about her own life, and now this sudden distance. "I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable," she said, her voice quieter. Malik sighed, a deep exhale that seemed to carry the weight of years of unspoken pain. "It's not you, Lucy. It's me. I've been on my own for a long time. I don't trust easily. And sometimes people just don't get it. They think they can fix things with money or offers of help, but they don't realize the damage that's already been done." Lucy stood there, trying to understand. "I'm sorry, Malik," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Malik gave her a nod, his expression softening just slightly. "It's all right," he said quietly. "You're not the problem. People like me, we just keep our distance. That's how we survive." As Lucy sat in her car, watching him turn and walk away, she felt a strange mixture of sadness and understanding. She had wanted to offer him something, anything, to show her appreciation. But Malik wasn't looking for handouts. He was looking for something much more elusive: respect, dignity, and the understanding that not everything in life could be fixed with a gesture of kindness. And for the first time, Lucy understood. Lucy sat in the car, watching as Malik walked away from her, his back straight, his steps firm. She had offered him help, and he had refused it. But it was more than just the rejection of charity. It was the way he had closed himself off, the way he had distanced himself from the very kindness she was trying to give. She had tried to understand, tried to bridge the gap between their worlds, but something in Malik's eyes, the vulnerability he had hidden so well, had shaken her more than anything. He wasn't just a man on the street. He was a survivor, and his survival had come at the cost of his trust. But just as she was about to start the car, something unexpected happened. Malik stopped in his tracks, his shoulders stiffening. Lucy's heart skipped a beat. Something had changed in the air. He turned around slowly, and for the first time, she saw the full weight of his struggle reflected in his eyes. "Lucy," Malik called out, his voice low, almost hesitant. Lucy immediately rolled down her window, her pulse quickening. She had no idea what was happening, but she knew it was important. "Yeah?" she asked, her voice soft. Malik took a deep breath, as if gathering his courage, and then he spoke. "I've been thinking," he started, his voice rough, like he was wrestling with something inside himself. "And I don't know how to explain this, but—" Lucy's heart raced. She could see that something had shifted in Malik. The walls that had been up between them seemed to be crumbling piece by piece. "What is it?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Malik took a step closer to the car, but he didn't reach for the door or lean on the window. He just stood there, looking at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of emotion, vulnerability, pain, and something else, something Lucy couldn't quite name. "I've spent a long time in this life," Malik continued, his voice quiet but steady. "A long time just trying to survive. And I've kept people at arm's length because if you let anyone in, you get hurt. And if you get hurt, you don't come back the same. You change. And I couldn't let myself change again. But now, standing here with you, I feel different." Lucy felt the weight of his words settle deep inside her chest. This wasn't just about a car anymore. This wasn't about fixing something physical. It was about repairing the wounds that had built up in both of them over the years. "I don't know why you care," Malik continued, his voice a little stronger now. "But the truth is, I do need help. I need someone to see me, to really see me. Not as a homeless man, not as a charity case, but as someone who deserves more. And that's hard for me to admit." Lucy's eyes were wide now, the shock of his confession taking root in her heart. She had never heard anyone speak like this before. Not in this raw, honest way. She didn't know what to say at first. How could she respond to something so vulnerable, so real? "You don't have to be alone, Malik," Lucy said softly, the words escaping her before she could think them through. "You don't have to do this by yourself." For a long moment, there was nothing but silence between them. Malik looked at her, his expression unreadable, before he took another step closer. "I don't know how to trust anyone anymore," he admitted. "I've been burned too many times. And I don't know if I'm ready to let someone in. But for the first time in a long time, I'm starting to think that maybe I don't have to carry this weight alone." Lucy's heart broke for him. She could see how much he had been through, how much he had lost, and yet, here he was, still fighting, still surviving, still holding on to the last bit of his pride. She understood now. This wasn't just about fixing a car. It was about giving Malik a chance to rebuild his life piece by piece. "I don't expect you to trust me right away," Lucy said, her voice filled with tenderness. "But I want you to know that I'm here. I don't have all the answers, and I can't change everything in your life. But I can offer you something. A chance. A way out of this cycle." Malik stared at her, his expression softening for the first time. The hardness in his eyes began to crack, and a flicker of hope started to shine through the walls he had built around himself. "I've never been given a chance like that," he said quietly, almost to himself. "No one's ever offered me that before." Lucy smiled, her eyes filled with compassion. "Well, maybe it's time for someone to offer it. Maybe it's time for both of us to take a step into the unknown." Malik stood still, processing her words. His chest rose and fell with each breath, and for the first time, Lucy saw the weight of his burden beginning to lift, even if just a little. "I don't know what the future holds," Malik said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm willing to try." Lucy reached out, opening the passenger door of the car. "Then come with me. We can figure it out together." For a moment, there was hesitation in his eyes. But then, slowly, Malik took a step forward and climbed into the car. He didn't say a word, but the look in his eyes spoke volumes. As Lucy started the car and pulled away, the tension that had once defined their relationship had dissolved. They were no longer two strangers from different worlds. They were two people, connected by something deeper than just circumstance. The journey ahead was unknown, but for the first time they were taking it together. The drive was quiet at first, the hum of the engine filling the air between them. Malik sat in the passenger seat, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, but Lucy could sense that his mind was elsewhere, processing everything that had just happened. For her part, she couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come since their initial meeting. When they reached a small diner, Lucy pulled into the parking lot and stopped the car. It wasn't much, just a cozy place where the locals gathered, with the smell of fresh coffee and frying bacon drifting through the air. But it was a step forward, and for the first time Malik didn't hesitate. He got out of the car and followed her inside, his worn shoes clicking on the pavement. Inside, Lucy led Malik to a booth at the back, away from the crowd. As they sat down, she noticed how different he seemed. There was still a quiet intensity about him, but it was tempered now with something she hadn't seen before: hope. "I never thought I'd be here," Malik said quietly, glancing around the diner. "Never thought I'd be sitting down in a place like this. I've been on the outside for so long, I forgot what it felt like to just be normal." Lucy smiled, a sense of warmth spreading through her chest. "You're normal, Malik. You just had to find your way back." As they ordered, the conversation flowed more easily. They talked about their pasts, their mistakes, and what they wanted from life moving forward. It wasn't a perfect conversation. There were moments of silence, moments where neither of them knew exactly what to say. But the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of quiet that comes when two people have shared something real, something that can't be undone. "You know," Lucy said after a while, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly, "I've always been so focused on my career, on making sure I never needed anyone, that I forgot about the people around me. I've been so wrapped up in my own world that I never really stopped to see what others were going through." Malik listened, his eyes thoughtful. "You're not the only one," he replied. "People get caught up in their own lives, their own struggles. Sometimes they forget that there are others out there just trying to survive. But the thing is, we all have stories. We all have a past. And sometimes, the best thing you can do is listen." Lucy nodded, the weight of his words sinking in. She had always prided herself on her independence, on how much she had achieved on her own. But she had learned something valuable from Malik, that sometimes the strength doesn't lie in doing everything alone. Sometimes the real strength lies in being able to lean on others, to trust them, and to let them help. As they finished their meal, Malik looked at her, his expression serious. "I'm not saying I have all the answers," he said, his voice steady. "But I think I'm ready to start making some changes. I can't go back to the way things were. I'm not that person anymore." Lucy smiled, feeling a sense of pride in him. "You don't have to go back to anything. You can start fresh. We both can." For the first time since they had met, Malik smiled back at her. It was small, but it was genuine. The walls he had built so carefully over the years had come down, and in their place was a new sense of possibility. As they left the diner, Lucy turned to Malik, her voice calm but filled with determination. "You don't have to be alone in this anymore. If you need help, I'm here." Malik paused, looking at her for a long moment. "I don't know what the future holds," he said, "but I think I'm ready to take the next step, together." And in that moment, Lucy knew that neither of them was going back to the past. They were both moving forward, one step at a time. It wasn't going to be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But for the first time in a long time, Lucy and Malik were facing the future together, no longer defined by their pasts but by the possibility of what they could build together. As they walked out into the parking lot, Malik turned to her one last time. "Thank you, Lucy," he said, his voice sincere. "You didn't have to help me, but you did. And that means more than you know." Lucy smiled, feeling a lump form in her throat. "We all need help sometimes," she replied. "And you don't have to be alone anymore." As they got into the car and drove away, Lucy knew that their lives were forever changed. It wasn't just about a chance encounter on the side of the road anymore. It was about two people, from different walks of life, coming together to help each other find a way forward. And that, Lucy realized, was the most powerful thing of all. The drive was quiet, but the air between them had shifted. The tension that had once defined their encounter was now replaced by an unspoken understanding. Malik sat quietly in the passenger seat, his hands resting on his lap, looking out at the passing scenery. Lucy's eyes were focused on the road, but her mind was racing as she thought about the conversation they'd had just moments ago. The sun was beginning to set, casting golden hues over the horizon, and Lucy knew that the moment to act was now. She had seen something in Malik, a strength, a resilience, that she hadn't expected. He wasn't just a man who had lost everything. He was a man who could rebuild. He just needed the right opportunity. And Lucy wasn't about to let him return to the streets. As they reached a quiet, secluded area, Lucy pulled off the road and into a long driveway that led to a beautiful, yet modest private property she owned. The house was tucked away among trees, a perfect place for someone who needed space and peace to heal. Malik looked at her, a bit confused. "Where are we?" he asked softly. Lucy turned off the engine, looking at him with determination in her eyes. "This is one of my properties," she said. "I want you to stay here tonight. I don't want you to be out there on the streets anymore." Malik's brow furrowed, uncertainty filling his eyes. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Lucy responded, her voice gentle but firm. "I've seen what you're capable of, Malik. You don't deserve to live like this. You've been through enough, and I'm not going to let you go back to it." She reached into her bag and pulled out a business card, handing it to him. "By tomorrow morning, I'll have connected you with a few people in the industry. People who can help you get back on your feet and get you back to doing what you love. But for tonight, just rest. You're safe here." Malik's eyes softened, and for the first time in a long time, he looked vulnerable, unsure of what to do with the kindness she was offering. "I don't know if I can accept this," he said quietly. "I've been alone for so long. It's hard to believe that anyone would want to help." Lucy placed a hand on his arm, her voice steady. "I'm not just offering you help. I'm offering you a chance to rebuild. You have the skills, the heart, and the drive. Now, all you need is the opportunity." Malik looked at her, his expression softening. For the first time, he seemed to believe it. I won't forget this, Lucy. I promise." Lucy smiled. "I don't need you to promise anything. Just take the first step. And I'll be here to help you with the rest." Malik stepped out of the car slowly, looking up at the house as if he couldn't believe what was happening. He turned back to her, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Lucy nodded. "Get some rest. We'll start fresh tomorrow." As Malik walked toward the house, Lucy sat in the car for a moment, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and relief. She had done the right thing. She had given Malik not just a roof over his head, but a chance at a new life, a chance at hope. As she drove away, she couldn't help but think about how much this moment had changed her, too. She had started this journey thinking she was the one helping, but now she realized it wasn't just about fixing Malik's life. It was about fixing her own perspective, learning to see beyond the surface, and understanding that sometimes the greatest gift you can offer someone is a chance to believe in themselves again. The road ahead was uncertain, but Lucy knew that both she and Malik were on the right path. They were no longer defined by their pasts, but by the choices they made now. And for the first time in a long time, Lucy felt like she had truly made a difference. Have you ever felt like you were just one step away from losing everything? What if the difference between giving up and moving forward was simply someone reaching out and offering help? Malik's journey is a powerful reminder that a single act of kindness can change someone's life forever. If his story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who might need a little hope today. We all have the power to make a difference, no matter where we're from. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss more incredible stories of change, redemption, and the human spirit. Together, we can help each other find the strength to rise again.